Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the TripleJump podcast. It's a video game podcast. My name is Ben.
My name is Peter.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you, Ben?
Yes, I'm doing well.
Yes.
Yes. How are you? Yes. It's like in French when you say ça va, and you can say oui.
Oui.
Yes. Well, yes. I know
Yes.
that's not the literal translation. Welcome, everyone, to our video game podcast. It is episode 100. We've made it. What a milestone.
Whoa, steady on. Jeez, it's still a bit early in the morning for me. I can't do with all these fireworks and things.
It's nearly midday, but yeah, the day fireworks are a bit much for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Now, to celebrate it being episode 100, as we said last week in episode 99, we really had no plans or intentions to do anything at all.
No,
However,
that's right.
we have subsequently decided in the video version of this podcast to be on camera. We're
us.
here. We're doing it. We would do it every week, but it's a monumental undertaking, really, and it's just not worth the effort, is it, when we can just animate a PNG version of ourselves until we're back together in the same room.
So we're not walking anywhere this week. We're actually just on camera, looking down lenses and stuff.
Looking down at you.
Disgusting.
So, Peter, usually we have a sponsor each and every week. Now, you would have thought the sponsors would be lining up for episode 100, the big milestone episode. They want to get their product in there front and center for everyone to see on this, the biggest episode we've ever done.
Yeah, you would think so, but
You would.
maybe that's not the case because they've seen all other 90, well, we didn't do it from the beginning, but, they've seen 70 episodes worth where suddenly sponsors seem to drop off inexplicably, and maybe they think there must be a reason for that. Maybe it's not good to be a sponsor for this company. But
They didn't line up.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
They didn't line up this week, which was kind of sad. So I went to Big Boss Adam Pacitti and I asked him, Adam, Big Boss Adam Pacitti, do you mind terribly if we don't do a sponsor this week? And instead, maybe I open up my special email folder where I've got all my prestigious industry contacts in and just see who might want to record maybe a little message of support for us.
Right. Okay.
And Peter Austin, the stars are here with us.
Right.
In episode 100 of the podcast. I have 5 audio recordings from prestigious industry luminaries and people who we're big fans of. And I think I'm going to play 3 of them now.
Okay.
And maybe we'll play another couple at the halfway point after Weird News. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Let me just navigate. I've got about 12 windows open here. Oh, I suppose because it's audio form, I don't need to navigate anywhere, do I?
No,
but,
you should hopefully be able to just hear it. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Pending nothing going wrong, there should be no cuts here, and you should just be able to hear it. So no need to confirm if you can hear it. Just tell me if you can't hear it.
Right, I will. I'll do that. Yeah.
Here we go. Here's clip 1. I'm very excited, Peter. I hope you are too.
Yeah, I can't wait to see whether this is actually real or not. I don't really know.
Here we go.
Hi boys, it's the favourite French video game director, David Cage here. Just wanted to wish you a very congratulations on your big milestone reached. This cheers is to 100 more. Love, David Cage.
David!
Actual David Cage.
There he was. He's got a really good English accent, hasn't he?
I don't know what you're talking about. It sounded extremely French to me.
No, but he just does a good job, is what I'm saying. You can tell you can definitely tell he's from the deepest recesses of France. I mean, without a doubt, he's there eating cheese and drinking wine. But he just puts on he tries to make it easy for us to understand him, just like in his video games.
Just like in his so clear, so obvious. Not sort of wonky metaphors or anything like that.
No.
I know that we're both big David Cage fans, and I thought this guy we've got to get him on episode 100.
I didn't know you had him in your email contacts, to be honest. But
it's a mystery bag sometimes, Peter. I just go in there and see what's available. You know, it's sort of a lucky dip. I've got a bit of everybody in there.
Yeah.
Never know who you're going to get. Speaking of which, are you ready for number 2?
I am.
Here we are.
Hello guys, it's Kratos from the God of War. Have a great show, and congrats on 100 episodes.
What do you think of that?
Great. I mean, I love how aggressive Kratos sounds, as he always does. Doesn't sound like a mild-mannered, nice man at all.
No.
Definitely not like one of the nicest, most inoffensive people we've ever had the pleasure of working with. That's not how I would describe Kratos in any way.
I would say that he has perhaps been calmed in fatherhood.
Yeah, it's entirely
after
likely.
The events of God of War 2018. He's calmed down a little, but he took the time out of his busy murder schedule to come and talk to us and wish us congratulations on 100 episodes, which I will always thank him for.
It was good of him. I did know that he was in your email contacts though, because we've been in touch with him before on a few occasions, so that's not a surprise to me. That one. We've
worked with Kratos. It's not going to be long before we get Kratos on, what it means to me and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for the actual God of War, more of him on the channel. Finally, I've got this clip for now. Are you ready?
I am.
Here we go.
Hey guys, it's Will Poulter here, star of the Dark Pictures anthology Little Hope, and I just want to wish TripleJump a big congratulations on 50 episodes. Keep up the good work, lads. Is that it? Is that all I've got to do? Yeah, thank God for that.
So there we go.
It took a couple of clicks there to press the stop
couldn't quite bring it to a close. Look, Will Poulter, busy man.
He's so busy. He didn't have time for a second take when he realised maybe a couple of mistakes were made there. But, I mean, maybe calling our channel Double Jump was the real mistake. And maybe doing 100 episodes was the real mistake. So
Perhaps we're the ones in the wrong in this instance. But big thank you to Will Poulter, of course, huge megastar. Starred in one of the most prestigious and well-received video games of 2020, of course, Little Hope, which we did stream on the channel.
It's funny because he sounded a bit like, Jack from The Office.
Not really,
right?
I don't know him very well. I've only met him a couple of times.
But Jack from The Office. I don't know if you know this. He played the bus driver in Little Hope.
He?
He's obviously a distinct character to Will Poulter's, but just a coincidence, really, that Jack sounds a bit like someone from Little Hope, and he kind of sounded similar to Will Poulter, who played a different character completely in that game. So
it's true. Supermassive games do like to reuse actors, after all.
They do
between games. So who's to say? But there we are. That's what we've got for now.
Fantastic.
We've got a couple more.
I can't
We
wait.
will get to later
to hear who we've got next. Yeah,
huge guests.
Okay.
It's really this is going to be a really exciting episode. Before we get to those, though, Peter, we do of course need to thank our wonderful patrons who are the real sponsors of this podcast each and every week.
They're
if
wonderful.
you go to patreon.com/Team Triple Jump and donate as little as $1 per month, you get access to the question post for this podcast, where you can submit questions for this podcast.
Yep.
So, maybe consider doing that if you're in a position to do so. We want to thank all of you very, very much. There are other tiers available, of course, where you get different rewards and different access to certain things. However, the podcast post is the one you want access to if you want to ask questions on this podcast.
And everyone gets access to that if they're a patron. Doesn't matter what tier you are. So, just go on there and give $1 if you like.
$1. $1. Speaking of people who've given potentially $1 and maybe more, it's...
Cat.
Meow.
That's not me saying meow.
It doesn't say... She didn't say meow in the question.
No,
just to be clear.
The question is not meow. Cat says, "Hi guys, I'm the middle of Assassin's Creed Valhalla." Wow, you've got another big guest on to the show this week.
The middle.
You've
Welcome,
got the middle of Assassin's Creed Valhalla on.
Brilliant.
It says, "I'm in the middle of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and while I'm enjoying it, I'm finding it's just too long. I found Final Fantasy VII Remake had the same issue. The games are just too long, and I keep thinking they'd be better if they were just cut down in size a little. Are there any games you've played that you've enjoyed, but just thought were too long? Thanks for keeping us all sane
in the different lockdowns. Thanks, Kat. Thanks, Kat.
Lockdowns. Thank you, Kat, for that question there. Have you got any, Peter?
Well, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is one. Most of the Assassin's Creed and big Ubisoft games, I just can't stick with them, and I don't mind. I said this last week. I mean, that's kind of I guess partly why the question's been raised, because we sort of touched on a similar thing last week, which is that just I go into those games knowing that I probably won't see them through. I'll be interested to see what your experience is in What We Playin in today's podcast, because I know you have been playing it, and I think you also said last week that you wouldn't be surprised if maybe you eventually reached Assassin's Creed fatigue, Assassin's Fatigue. But we'll see. So that's certainly one. Red Dead Redemption, I never finished that. Great game. Talking about the first one. Didn't even really start the second one because of that reason. But, fantastic game, really good world, some interesting characters. Although I don't generally, as a rule, actually like most Rockstar characters. I think they're always a little bit horrible and unlikable, which I think they're probably supposed to be. But equally, it's quite hard for me to, sit down and enjoy a story when everyone's an arsehole. But yeah, RDR, the first one. And also just a bit of a wild card at the end. Haven Call of the King, that game with the stupid ending.
It doesn't even have an ending.
Well, it doesn't have an ending. If you wanted to 100% that game, which everyone wanted to do because it didn't have an ending, and they thought maybe if I 100% it, then it will have an ending. That was just ridiculous. You had to literally fly around an entire solar system almost seamlessly and circumnavigate entire planets. It was fantastic technology for the PS2. I don't know how they did it. You literally would fly down from space to a planet like No Man's Sky. It was just like that, but with a much...
Just like that?
It was just like that.
It's just like it, yeah.
In terms of no loading screen, a whole planet to fly around, but just obviously slightly less graphically impressive. You had to hunt for these tiny little needles in haystacks. So I mean, that's a bit of a trick answer, because that's to 100% the game, and that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. We're probably talking about games that are just too long without even necessarily going for a platinum or 100%. But as I say, with that game, I think most people wanted to 100% it because of the nature of the ending. So it sort of counts, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. To echo your sentiments with Rockstar game protagonists, I agree, they're assholes, all of them.
Yeah.
But it's never really put me off playing the games. However, I really do have an aversion to finishing Rockstar games in general. While I think GTA 5 is the superior game in a lot of ways, I have far fonder memories of GTA 4, and I couldn't finish that game. I tried on a couple of occasions, and I just reached a point where it just stretched off into the distance, and my next mission was all the way across town, and I wanted to drive there because that's half the fun of GTA, or, cheat in a helicopter and fly there. But then on the way, you'd get distracted and you'd start fighting people, and then you'd get busted. And it was just, unless I reach a point in those games, and I did finish GTA 5 this way, I reach a point in GTA games where I have to, when I finish a mission, hail a cab, get in it, and then skip the journey just to get to the next mission.
Yeah.
Because there's a point where there's too much traveling, and it's just taking too long to get to the next bit of story content for me. So for that reason, I've not finished Red Dead Redemption 1. I've not finished GTA 4. I did finish GTA 5. And I, as we have documented on this podcast before, absolutely bailed on Red Dead Redemption 2 almost straight away.
Yeah.
But that was mainly because I didn't really get on with the mechanics. I found it too simulation-y, and I wasn't really enjoying myself. And I saw how far this game was stretching into the distance in terms of runtime. And I just thought, no, I can't be doing that.
I was the same with GTA 3, what you say about GTA 4. I had GTA 3 on PS2. Great game, absolutely loved it. Loved driving around and just, going on rampages and stuff. And I enjoyed doing the missions up to a point. And I got through about a third of the game, maybe 50% of the game, something like that. And I couldn't bring myself to finish it. And that was back in the days where, I didn't have that many games in my possession, or at least I wasn't getting new games on a very regular basis. I maybe get a few per year, maybe, if I was lucky.
So you'd think that I would want to make the most out of what I had and just, get to some new and interesting content and new missions and stuff. But I just couldn't do it. Yeah.
There's something to be said for the fun of their open world games if you can get distracted that easily. But for me, it was detrimental to the experience in the long run because I just couldn't get to the end of the story. I couldn't see where it went next because I couldn't stay focused long enough, which is a me problem, not a them problem.
Yeah.
Because they're clearly extremely successful games. But it's definitely a couple of series that have fallen off for that reason, just because of the way they design them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
I've also got The Last of Us Part 2, which we talked about in our Game of the Year show. I feel like that probably could have had like maybe 5 or 6 hours shaved off it in the end. I'm ultimately glad that it was the length that it was, but I do wish it had been maybe a little shorter in some areas. As you said, most Ubisoft open world games kind of lose me almost immediately just because they're so dense and there's too much in them. And Persona 5, as much as I love that game, just stretched on and on.
Yeah, that's true.
And while I love the day-to-day sort of going to school, working a part-time job, studying in your spare time, the time management stuff I really like. But being stuck in these massive palaces, which is sort of the big combat areas of the game that happen every, 10 hours or so of game time, and where you fight the big bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
Towards the end, they just stretched on. There were sort of like 4 or 5 different points where I felt like the game was coming to a close, and then it kept going. But it wasn't sort of interspersed with what I considered the fun but probably mundane stuff of actually living a normal life on the side. It was just battles, like big boss battles, one after another, and then having to fight through loads of really tough enemies and then get to the next boss battle. And I really wish that game had not had that stuff towards the end. I don't think, it should have been quote unquote easier, but I do think that I started to tire of it towards the end, which is really sad. Yeah, exactly.
I seem to remember the design of those palaces as well. I mean, I didn't actually play it. I sat and spectated most of it because my girlfriend played through it. But I seem to remember them being really quite boringly designed. It was just kind of the same corridors or just the same. I mean, maybe I'm wrong there, but I remember them not even being that interesting to go through. I know overall it's quite a visually interesting game because of the way it presents, even just its HUD and stuff like that. But the actual levels in those palaces seem to just kind of be lots of very similar looking corridors filled with the same enemies over and over.
Yeah, when you first arrive in them, it's interesting. So, this one's sort of Egyptian pyramid themed, and this one's a museum, and you go into the works of art and stuff. But they just the further into the game you get, the longer those palaces get, the longer you spend in them, the more complicated they are, and honestly, the less fun they are. And they are designed so that you can reach a safe point in the palace and leave for the day and come back whenever you want, just before like the arbitrary deadline that the game sets in, on a real calendar for you to complete the dungeon. But ultimately, towards the end of the game, I found myself just trying to do it all in one go. And I think probably a few other people found themselves in that position. I do still want to play Persona 5 Royal. It's my intention to play it after I finish this. But from what I understand, it adds the good stuff, like an entire other sort of season of school in there and stuff like that. So I'm interested to play that, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it because I haven't played it since it came out. When I played it for review, so just before it came out actually, and I'm ready to go through it again. But that was definitely a game that I felt like just was a bit too long. Yeah, just a bit too long, that one. Which is a shame.
Well, talking about games that we didn't play because they were a bit too long or didn't finish. Yeah. It's maybe time to talk about games that we are playing right now that maybe are still too long if we're still playing Assassin's Creed, or maybe aren't too long if it's perhaps like a really short demo that was like 10 minutes long. Who's to say? Yeah? It's what we're playing.
It's what we play in time. Time to talk about what we playing. Peter, what are you playing?
Well, I have played that very short demo this week. The Resident Evil Village demo. That's
I can weigh in
exclusive.
on this too.
Yeah, I know you can. Yeah, which I didn't necessarily expect when I saw that it had been released on the PS5, the demo, exclusive to PS5. And also, I should add, we were talking about Resident Evil Village. I think it was on the podcast, or maybe it was on a stream, a couple of weeks ago. And I think we were saying like, "Oh, do you think we'll play it? Will we not play it?" I think I want to play even more now that I've seen what there is, and I don't even mean the demo necessarily. I just mean from the showcase that was done this week at time of recording. But one of the things that I think you said was, if it's first person like Resident Evil 7 was, you're not sure whether you'll be able to play it or not. So I'll be interested to see whether you're still feeling that way.
Which subsequently, I immediately realised I could have Googled this and in 1 minute found out that it was definitely first person again.
Yeah, because I think neither of us had maybe seen footage of it for a while, but I think they actually revealed fairly early on that some kind of first person gameplay style stuff, even if it wasn't actually gameplay, it was meant to illustrate, I guess, that the game was going to be first person. So yeah, first person. So the demo came out on PS5, and hey, I found it very scary, and I found it very scary in the sense that Resident Evil 7 made me the most scared, which was in its sound design more than anything else. I didn't think actually that many scary things ended up happening in the demo. There was maybe one major jump scare, which was just an environmental thing that happened quite early on, which, got me pretty good. And then after that, there was a lot of tension. I was doing a lot of creeping around corners. What's going to be in here? But actually, there was nothing too monstrous, I didn't think. No sort of horrific abominations. Just a couple of, no major spoilers for those who still haven't played it, but a couple of people. But just the way that they do sound design in those games, and maybe this is now a standard across all sort of mainstream AAA horror games. I don't play really any others, so I wouldn't know. So all I've got is Resident Evil to compare to. But as far as I'm concerned, Resident Evil 7, one of the scariest things about it was just the way that they utilized sound effects and stuff in that game. You'd be walking around the mansion, and there'd be all sorts of creaks and groans, and it would be like sounds that you've never heard before, even though they're all just in the library of ambient sounds that game has had put into it. There would always be some sort of new sound, it seemed. So you would always be hearing these things thinking, what is that? Is that because I've triggered something now? And it wasn't. It was just a sound that was happening. And I felt like there was a lot of that even in the very short demo that we've been playing this week. Even just, they put sounds in there that it's actually your own, say it's like your own footsteps, for example, or it's the sound of a door creaking and closing behind you. So there's a reason for that sound to be happening, but you don't necessarily expect it. So if you turn on the spot, as you would in real life, your feet shuffle slightly underneath you. And I found that when I was standing just looking around, if I turned more than about 90 degrees, there would be like a step. And I'd be like, oh, what was that? So really well done. And I just can't wait to play more of it. And it really just got me excited for a potential Resi 4 remake, which I'm sure is going to happen. I still don't think they've officially said that is happening, or I'm pretty sure they haven't. But I think in the fandom and the people who are big Resident Evil stans on Twitter and stuff, there's a big rumor mill going. It's not just the case of they've made the other ones, they'll probably do that one next. I think there's actually sort of leaky things and bits and bobs of rumors that are saying, no, we think it actually is in production right now. So that's very exciting.
It was compromised in the big hack, as well as many other story moments and big plot points of Resi 8. So be careful if you're online and you're looking at stuff. I already know, sadly, more about what happens to the main antagonist of this game than I wanted to. That was just sort of a reply to someone's comment on Imgur. So Be careful if you're on the
jeez.
internet and want to avoid spoilers, because it's all out there. It's all online.
Oh no, I don't know anything,
it's a shame.
fortunately, so I'll have to be careful too.
Tread lightly. Not long. Not long to go. May, is it? I think it's May.
Yeah, it's kind of middle of the year, maybe something like that. I think it is May. So as much as I was keen to play some more Horizon this week, actually also I ended up playing some Resident Evil 4 instead on PS2.
Nice.
I didn't want to get myself into a whole playthrough because there's a fair few hours of that game, but I played a little bit of the opening act in the village. Had a couple of sessions playing that, and then I did some of the mercenaries mode, which is a kind of almost mini game style thing where you just get plonked down in a certain area of that game, and it's just kind of waves of enemies come at you like a horde mode thing. So I just couldn't really help myself, because that was the other thing I took away from that demo, which was not only has it got me excited for a potential remake of Resi 4, but also the way that game is, as many people have said up to this point. I mean, it's called Resident Evil Village. It's set in a kind of seemingly European medieval-ish village with a castle there, and although it's clearly set in modern times because of some of the things you see lying around, it's got a very old, archaic feel to it. So just sitting and playing the demo just made me think, oh man, Resi 4 was great, wasn't it? So I just ended up having to scratch that itch and go and play that instead. So that's actually what I've done. In terms of what I've been playing this week, it's just all been a big old Resident Evil week. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I was really impressed with the demo. This is weird, right? I didn't actually play it myself, but it was played on my console via SharePlay, and I watched someone else play it.
Yeah.
Through, just sort of glancing out the corner of my eye. I didn't really want to look at it too closely because it was inherently very frightening. Absolutely beautiful game.
Yeah, it is.
Again, and I think it really benefits from that new castle setting, because as gorgeous as Resi 7 was in first person, it was bloody ugly and horrible. The place you were in, just a horrible decaying house, and
very dark for most of the time.
Yeah, very dark and dank. But like seeing the engine really put through its paces in sort of quite a vibrant castle type environment was really, it was something to behold. It was very pretty. I do, of course, have to ask you what you make of everyone's fawning obsession with is it Lady Dimitrescu, I think?
I can't remember exactly what it was. I only saw it once written down. Right. I was kind of hoping you'd bring this up, actually, because personally, I don't really get it in terms of, I mean, I don't know, like people didn't talk about like Jill Valentine or well, whoever, Claire, maybe I should say, from Resi 2, who's also, an attractive Resident Evil character. But I think it's partly people are doing it for the memes, and also because she's like 9 feet tall. Maybe that just makes it funnier.
Kotaku confirms she's 8 feet tall.
8 feet tall. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, you should be sorry.
But yeah, I've seen all this like going on, and it's like, I found the Mr. X stuff funny, where it was more just about how relentless and terrifying, and he will just walk through a wall to get you, sort of thing. But just to have all these people swooning over Lady Dimitri, which is not what it is. I don't really understand it, but fine. I mean, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum.
No, of course not. I didn't initially understand it because I'd only seen stills of her, and I was like, that's a lady in a hat, and that was sort of where I left it.
It's just a lady.
And then it was brought up on my stream last week, and I was like, I didn't know there was, because I hadn't watched the showcase. Because part of me had forgotten that it was even happening, and another part of me thought that sounds a bit like it's a bit much for me. I don't know if I can really enjoy that, so I didn't watch it. And Then I started seeing the memes, and I actually got quite on board with it and thought it was quite funny. The whole sort of, I don't know if you saw the meme that was going around on Twitter about the new ESRB rating for Resident Evil.
No.
Rated S for Step on Me.
Right,
and so on and so forth. And it like genuinely, there's been some really funny video game, related memes that have come out of this this obsession with her. And then when I played through the demo, and it got to the end, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I think it's just because she's so big. I think that's the novelty of it for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And that's sort of where the humor is.
I can get behind memes that say rated S for Step on Me because that's kind of that's funny. But I think there's also just a subsect of people just saying like, oh my God, wow, like, oh, I can't wait to play this. How am I supposed to play this game when, like,
how am I supposed to concentrate?
Like, I'm meant to be running away from this character, but I don't mind if she catches me, sort of thing. I mean, even that is a bit tongue in cheek, but some people are really just saying like, oh yeah, she's well fit.
I haven't seen any sincere worship of her. It's mainly been comic. I think there's an underlying sort of sincerity to it, but I think mostly it's poking fun, and I've been quite enjoying the memes, to be honest. Like the first person perspective when she's grabbing you by the neck and lifting you up, and then the next panel of the meme is showing just like someone holding up a chubby pet rat, and it's got sort of like a woo PNG over the top of its face and stuff. I don't know. I think it's funny. I've been really enjoying it. And
that stuff's all fun and games. Yeah.
But yeah, it looks great. The whole game outside of the good lady.
Yeah.
And it's very Resident Evil as well. You find that ring, and then you have to examine the ring, and you take the eyeball off the ring, and then you put the eyeball in a statue. It's all par for the course, but it looks great, and I'm very excited to experience it. Even if I don't play it, it's still one of my most anticipated games this year in a very sort of warped way. So it should be good.
There's going to be a merchant in there.
Is there?
That's not a leak or a spoiler, unless people literally don't want to know anything about this game. But then why you're listening to us discuss the demo? But yeah, so again, another Resi 4 vibe there. So it really feels like they're testing the waters for a game that they're, I guess already committed to making, but I guess if not testing the waters, then warming us up, giving us a little aperitif. But there's a guy who will be selling you guns out in the village or whatever. So he's a different guy seemingly, but it's certainly evoking all your hello stranger kind of vibes. So
yes, what are you buying?
Yeah,
exciting.
Sounds good.
Honestly, it sounds very good. Hopefully Capcom can keep up the momentum that they've had for the past couple of years, because they've been on a real roll.
Such a good engine.
Roll.
It's the engine that does so much work for them.
But beyond that, I've also played some Warzone. I've played some Zombies. I've played The Evil Within, and that game. It didn't review brilliantly at the time. It didn't review poorly, but I don't think it was everyone's cup of tea. Excuse me. It certainly wasn't the return to form for Shinji Mikami that I think a lot of people wanted it to be. The sequel was apparently significantly better, but it's just a bit wonky and a bit weird and rubbish, and the story's kind of all over the place, and it all uses a lot of sort of tropes that horror games had done way before about, it's just, is it all in his mind? It's his guilt manifesting, and it's like, sure, okay, we've done this.
I'll go play Silent Hill, but thanks very much.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has its merits and it does stuff well, but it's not brilliant.
Right.
Anyway, so that's The Evil Within. Obviously, I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I am now 33 hours into it.
Jeez. Wow.
And I've reached a point where it seems the story is coming to a conclusion. And I know that because the PS5 cards very helpfully tell me I'm 80% of the way through Eivor's journey.
I forgot about the cards. I've not really been using those.
Yeah, I didn't check them on purpose. I just saw it pop up. And okay, that's genuinely helpful. But the basic layout of Assassin's Creed Valhalla is that you're traveling from your little settlement to various places around districts and shires and kingdoms and so on, and helping people out in the hope that you can become friends and secure an alliance so that when the time comes, you can call on that alliance should you need it. I've reached a point in the game where I can call on my alliances, and I do need to. However, there are still shires and areas that can be approached and sort of brought into the fold.
Right.
And, part of me thinks I definitely could just charge through to the end of the game now and just finish it. But there's also a part of me that thinks I kind of want all of the shires on board with me. And it's at this point that I'm thinking, do these shires need to be here, especially if I can just go ahead and finish the game? Going back to our first question, it just seems to stretch off into the distance, this game. Just keeps going and going, and if I come across one more door that's barred from the other side, I am going to scream, because I'm so fed up of running round every side of a building, desperately trying to spot a way in.
You're a bloody
it's not
Viking.
Obvious at all.
Just chop it down.
I know. And I've got various abilities now that make the combat way easier, like ridiculously easy, several of which are arrow-based, and you would have thought one of those arrows can definitely get through that door and smash the crappy lock on the other side.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I am genuinely enjoying it. That's the thing. As I said last week, as a Viking game, it's really fun. And it does strike that balance between the sort of I don't want to say arcadiness, but the video gameness in terms of it being enjoyable that The Witcher 3 had, and also the realism, but not necessarily the enjoyment factor that Kingdom Come Deliverance had in terms of being set in a real place. And it's interesting to see the original names of these settlements, and obviously they're a lot closer than they are in real life, and they're probably a lot smaller than they were at that time as well. But it is fascinating to go to, say, Oxenfordshire, or go to Norwich and have it spelled Northwich. Snottingham, exactly. Leicestershire and stuff. It's genuinely interesting, and I like that a lot. And again, kudos to Ubisoft and the worlds that they can create. But it's just too big, and it's so overstuffed that I do really believe that a more streamlined experience would just be far better. And I've been playing it as if it's a streamlined experience, and it still feels too big. And so I'm near the end. Hopefully I'll be finishing it this weekend, and I'll be able to say that on the whole I did enjoy my time with it, and I'm glad that they did this time period, and I'm interested to see where they go next. But I still think that it's just too big. It's too long and too bloated.
That's good though that you think you'll at least be able to finish it, so that's great. And I will go back to it when I've not got a bunch of other games that I know I would rather be playing right now. Like why would I sit and go through hours and hours of Assassin's Creed when I've got other stuff in the queue? So I will go back, I'm sure. Completely off unexpected question maybe I've got for you. Where do you think that they might, or when do you think that they might go next with another Assassin's Creed game?
Given the sheer number of ruins in this game, I'd quite like them to go to Rome. During the Roman Empire.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think what time periods, like pop culture.
Ancient Greece.
Yeah, so they've done
Renaissance, Victorian Britain.
Done Egypt.
Revolution France.
America, they've done. So, in terms of big, popular, I guess they've not done anything in the Far East, have they? Have they done
no
Japan?
They haven't done that. I think there were some spin-off games that have been set there, but they haven't been full entries. And I think there could be an argument that Ghost of Tsushima has sort of stolen their thunder a little bit, perhaps in that regard. But I'd still be interested in seeing a game set there. However, again, I still don't think it's on the same level as The Witcher 3 specifically, but I do think that they've really found a niche here that I think they should double down on. I think they should explore other periods in medieval European history, and just lean into those green rolling hills, my dude. It's nice. It's a nice world to be in, and I'd like more of that.
I almost wish, and they're not going to do it now, maybe ever, or certainly not for a long time, having just done Valhalla, but I had always hoped they would do a just slightly pre-Roman Britain at some point, kind of Celtic, I thought that would be really interesting before the Romans arrived, and it was just a bunch of kind of essentially warring tribes up and down Britain. But that's definitely not going to be able to happen now for a long time, otherwise it would just be almost the same.
Imagine if we got a third game set in Britain.
Yeah.
Look at us. We're somehow, in a lot of instances, we're still positioned as kind of the bad guys.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's really impressive.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I will. You know, I've talked a lot of smack about Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft in particular, and I do think a lot of it is well deserved. But I'm happy to admit that I was wrong about Valhalla, and on balance, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, that's good.
There's still definitely a lot of the problems that I knew there would be going into this game, which is precisely the reason I was hesitant to even play it. But on balance, I have had a really good time with it, and when it's done, I think I'll need to just hop into the next big game, because there will be it's become part of my daily routine now.
Yeah.
Going in and, like a big game that dominates a lot of your time tends to do. It's
you can have a
you
gap.
think about it when you're not playing it and stuff, and so I'll need something to replace it with pretty quickly, I imagine.
Yeah.
But there we are. That's what I've been playing.
Well, should we move on to a question?
I suppose we should.
It's from Banoffee.
It comes from Banoffee. Delicious. What is the most you've ever laughed with a game, finding its intentional humour just right? Conversely, what is the most you've ever laughed at a game, when it unintentionally tickled your funny bones?
I actually sort of struggled to think of that many games that... there's plenty of games that go for a comedic kind of vibe, but I was trying to think of any that have like really made me kind of laugh out loud at moments. It's quite often, I think when you're sitting playing a game on your own, you'll do a lot of, even if you find it really funny.
The nose snort there.
Yeah, just an internal like, that's a good joke. I really like that. But I did think of Portal and Portal 2. I think Portal 2 especially. I think I laughed out loud consistently.
Yes. That's a very good shout, actually.
Frequently at both of those games. I think they're so well done. They're very self-aware. They subvert certain tropes. The characters are really well written. Like the dialogue and the way these characters have been designed. Cave Johnson as well. Obviously, initially you go to the likes of GLaDOS and Wheatley, but Cave Johnson as well was a great character and an excellent performance. So Portal 2, I think, is up there. Also, again, bit of a weird answer, but like Gmod, I think just doing silly things in the actual sandbox mode. I know that's not sort of written humor in terms of like the creator, but even things like Prop Hunt, that's a bit more intentional kind of humor on the part of whoever came up with Prop Hunt. And I have laughed many times playing Prop Hunt with friends, just watching a vending machine run down a corridor while someone's like screaming over live chat in your ear. That's again, so it's a different thing. It's not like I'm laughing at dialogue or like something that's been written into a screenplay or whatever the video game equivalent is. But so Portal 2 is my main answer, but Gmod as well I've had many laughs with. Yeah. What about you for games you have laughed at laughed with?
Yes, laughed with. It's difficult because there aren't many games that sort of outright pursue comedy. They're either sort of light-hearted, like Mario, where they have sort of asides, or they have moments of levity and sometimes a slightly more serious plot, like Uncharted, for example, where they quip to each other and stuff. But there aren't many that are just sort of position themselves as comedy games.
It was harder to answer than I expected when I first read the question.
Yeah. It's not really a genre that exists with video games. You don't get comedy video games because inherently they're usually taking the piss out of video games, and by virtue of that alone, they're not very good video games because they're, like Saints Row does it all the time, where they'll say, go collect 30 of these things, and your character will go, really? 30? You couldn't just get them yourself? And it's like, haha, that's poking fun at video games, but ultimately I'm still having to collect 30 of these.
Like Deadpool.
And you've just made me aware of how silly this is. Yeah.
Did you play the Deadpool game? That was a bit
no,
like
I didn't.
that.
I didn't play the Deadpool
That
game.
was really... They kind of over Deadpooled it, I found. Like, it was, he's constantly breaking the fourth wall. He's talking to... I don't think he I can't remember if he actually addresses the player, but he talks about the fact that he's in a game and that like all these tropey things are happening. But it's still like, okay, that's funny, but for God's sake, like now I've got to do that thing because they had to include it in this game so that he could take the piss out of it. So Yeah.
And you're just hyper aware that what you're doing is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because if the game points that out, then it feels even less worth your time than before.
Yeah.
So doing comedy in games is hard, and there are a few comedy games that I've enjoyed that I would say are more comedy, but they're direct adaptations from basically comedy cartoons. South Park games, the South Park games,
Right.
the two RPGs were very good. Obviously, The Simpsons Hit and Run is
Yeah.
a classic that a lot of people love. Don't think it's made me laugh out loud. I think South Park maybe made me a couple of times.
Yeah.
But that's about it. In terms of a game that has made me laugh, I'm fairly sure Borderlands 2 has made me laugh out loud. The same with Tales from the Borderlands. I really enjoyed both of those games, and they got the humor bang on, but it was humor set within its own world, with its own characters and its own set of rules, rather than go collect 40 of these,
Yeah.
you scrub, and you're like, well, why am I doing this? And like, I don't know. Collecting things is boring, isn't it?
'Cause
Anyway,
you're in a
have
game.
fun. Yeah, which is sort of sadly the direction Borderlands 3 tended to take a bit more.
Right.
But Borderlands 2 and Tales from the Borderlands were both just really funny games set in that universe. And I know Borderlands humor isn't for everyone, and a lot of people find it a bit over the top or just not funny. But Tales from the Borderlands in particular has been cited to me by a few people as a game that they really enjoyed and thought was really funny, but they hate Borderlands.
Yeah.
So if you're able to play that one, I would recommend it, because it is genuinely a really funny game, and I liked it a lot, for
Yeah.
sure. So what about a game that isn't meant to make you laugh but has?
Well, we've played plenty together. You know, all of our David Cage experiences on the joint streams, Blaze It, and the Dark Pictures anthology games, I think they've all had their moments where I'm pretty sure they weren't really going for humor in those moments, but we had a good laugh at. And then I've written a list of moments off the top of my head in Worst Games Ever where we both cracked up and were sort of wiping away laughter juice from our eyes, which I'll get to in just a moment. But outside of Worst Games Ever, because that's just a bottomless pit of unintentionally funny games, there's a Little Britain DVD game, which is not really a video game, but honorable
Yes.
mention.
Yeah.
That's probably the most we may have ever laughed on a video together. And also You're in the Movies, which is more of a video game. That was very funny. But to quickly mention a few highlights from Worst Games Ever. Prison Break, when we ran past that guard right in front of his face in the basement. Do you remember? We just he didn't see us. That was
Just
one.
did because we went fast enough.
Yeah.
Was that Prison Break, or was that A Way Out, that one?
That was Prison Break.
Was it?
Yeah.
Same game.
Yeah, pretty much the same game. Little Britain, the PS2 game, had a couple of moments in there, which, I mean, some of it was just us going, I can't believe this was made, but also it was just such a badly done game. Sonic 2006 with the whale, the orca going through the gate. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, swinging around your sister as a weapon. That was pretty fun. Demon Summoner, the hovering vampire as the ship pulls away from the dock. Jumper Griffin's Story had a couple of really janky moments with cars and helicopters and stuff just crashing, flying around. Sum of All Fears as well. That's the one that's on our channel trailer at the moment, with the guy who tries to shoot us when we open the door, and actually Demon Summoner's on there as well. So that was just an initial, as I say off the top of my head. There's plenty more out there. I think there were some big moments in America's 10 Most Wanted where we really had a few laughs. But just all of Worst Games Ever really is probably my answer for that second part.
Definitely. Go and watch those.
Yeah.
Go and watch those videos. I have laughed at a lot of terrible FMV games that have recently been sort of returning to prominence.
Yeah.
Games like Late Shift and The Shape-Shifting Detective. I've had people over and played through those, and you just drink and you laugh and you make the worst decisions possible, because the acting is ropey, the writing is terrible, and I unironically love those games. Anything new that Wales Interactive releases, I'm buying it. because I need to experience it.
Yeah.
Because they're all so inherently not very good, and they're brilliant, and I love them. And so those games have made me laugh a lot. One that came to me last night, actually, that I've just added on here is Death Stranding.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's a game that takes itself extremely seriously while also not taking itself very seriously. Like a lot of the characters will, including Norman Reedus' character, will wink and nod, like just straight up wink at the camera from time to time. And it's like, you know how stupid all this is, right?
Oh, God.
And there's one point towards the end, which I am now going to talk about. And if you haven't played Death Stranding...
And you really want to...
Spoilers for Death Stranding. There's a point... Because there's a lot of imagery about beached whales and going to beaches and stuff, and you know the upside down and the nether and the inverse and whatever you want to call it. And you're running along. You've just rescued your sister / the president / your love interest. It's like it doesn't. I can't remember the
/ your love interest. Did you just say sister / love interest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think there's some that I can't remember the full details, but it fits into that vague category where it's sort of like they care about each other a lot, and some of the stuff you've learned is not true, and it's just Kojima being him, you know. There's a bit where you rescue her, and she says. In fact, I'm going to look up the line right now because I don't think I can do it justice. Death Stranding. Right, here we go. So, there's a Reddit thread here that says, "Can someone walk me through the Princess Beach scene?" So I'm going to try and find the actual line. Here we are. So... You rescue her, and she turns to you and says something like, "Yeah, like Mario and Princess Beach."
What?
And then they run together along the beach in like slow motion, laughing and stuff. And it's so ill-fitting for what has happened in the game up until that point and what is going on around them at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just the most unintentionally comedic thing I've ever seen.
Even if she just said, "Yeah, like Mario and Princess Peach." Like, it's like, why would you say something like that if it's in some ways meant to be a very serious game? I know in other ways it's not, but, in this very gritty, horrible world, why would anyone say, "Oh, thanks for rescuing me," like Mario and Princess Peach? But then to add in the weird beach pun because it's a kind of a beach-related game with beach imagery, Jesus Christ, that's very weird.
From what I remember, you just had a boss fight. I'm looking at stills now. Norman Reedus is covered in blood. He doesn't even have a name anymore. He's just Norman Reedus, the actor. Mm-hmm. And the caption is, "Run?" And the lady says, "Yeah, like Mario and Princess Beach." And then they run. And then they run on the beach together.
Lovely.
And
just
it's
like Mario did.
And Princess Beach.
And Princess Beach.
It's just the weirdest, out of the blue... I just laughed at it because I was like, this is just... It was at this point that I was way beyond the pale of playing it past where I was enjoying it. And I was playing it out of spite, as I've spoken about on this podcast before. Yeah. Because people took issue with what we were saying about Death Stranding. So I was like, fine, I'm going to finish this bloody game. And then I can say whatever I want about it. And no one can say, well,
you've not played it.
You've not played it long enough. It gets really good at hour 50 or
whatever.
whatever.
Remember when people were saying that? Oh, it'll be really good if you put in like literally 4 dozen hours.
And then I got to Princess Beach, and I was like, this is just, how can anyone look at this and think this is just Kojima's best work? Yeah. This is the best thing he's ever done.
Oh, thank God he went out on his own and was finally able to produce things without being
He's
limited.
A madman.
Yeah.
Someone needs to keep him in check. He makes things like this.
I mean, God knows what he's doing now. I mean, I shudder to think what is next from
I await it with interest. Much interest. But yeah, those were some games that I laughed at that I don't think it wanted me to laugh at, for sure. The Dark Pictures anthology games as well, definitely. Yeah. Not meant to laugh at those, and yet we did.
We did, yeah. Anything really that has its, has narrative a branching narrative like that, and it's not a game that you play in terms of moving people around as much as just making decisions. Even like Hidden Agenda, I know it's not Dwavid levels or Dark Pictures levels, but I'm pretty sure we had a few laughs at Hidden Agenda thinking this is still a bit weird, or you can make it weird, I suppose. Games like that, you have the agency to just do strange and silly
mess
things.
Around in it.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, Peter, it's time to move on to something a little strange.
My prop is not on my desk. Let me
Fetch my prop. I have my prop.
Here we go.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's time for Weird News!
I didn't actually say weird news.
Weird News! It's Weird News time. Peter, what is your weird video game news?
Let me just bring it up for you right now, Ben.
Okay.
This is according to thegamer.com.
Ooh.
So it must be video game news. They actually did a perfectly good write-up for this on Kotaku, but I just thought, hey, let's not just always go to Luke Plunkett. Let him have a break at some point.
Big Luke.
So I deliberately just Googled it elsewhere so I could get a different write-up, mix it up a bit. Microsoft patent might make chatbots out of dead people.
What?
Subtitle: So Microsoft might be about to make chatbots out of dead people, according to a new patent. Really just rewritten the headline there into a subheading. This has actually been written by someone called Sean Murray, I've just realised.
Oh.
I'm assuming it's not the same Sean Murray from the video game world who brought us the fantastic launch of No Man's Sky.
Yes. I think
flawless.
it's the same guy.
I think it is. I think he's not allowed to make games anymore, so he's just resorted to video game journalism. So I don't know if this article is going to use the words. Yes, it is. Okay. Yeah, I'll leave it then until we get there. So there's a weird thing that happens on the internet these days. It used to be that people died and then had all their stuff distributed to their survivors, like family pictures, journals, or whatever else they kept. Now, a lot of that stuff gets posted online and basically free for anyone to see. And then, when you die, that stuff just sits there, maybe forever. It's obviously talking about your data and your social media presence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
This means that there's a growing amount of data that could be used to make something new. Something like a chatbot, for example. Microsoft's latest patent, as reported by The Independent and Kotaku, it says in brackets, thank you, is basically a piece of software that would take someone's social media data and turn it into a chatbot. That includes things like images, voice data, social media posts, electronic messages, that's in a quote from Microsoft, and whatever other detritus that person posts online. For some reason, the patent includes a picture of a tablet. So I guess one of the images with the patent has a tablet on there. But the patent is mostly about software rather than hardware. Artificial intelligence would collate all that data on a person and use it to create a virtual profile, which then gets turned into a chatbot. The patent stipulates this process would work on any past the process would work on any past or present entity, meaning you could use it to create a virtual you while you're alive, or someone else could use it to make a virtual you after you're gone. And here's what I was alluding to before. We're already pretty deep into Black Mirror territory. But what if artificial intelligence then gains sentience and actually believes it's the same dead person reborn in digital form? So most of the discussion about this story, I don't know if you've seen this around on social media, this story.
No, I haven't.
People have been comparing it to an episode of Black Mirror, I think from the first series, where basically this exact thing happens in the beginning. It's like a grieving service, like a process. This woman who's lost, I think, her husband or her boyfriend, she gets recommended this service by a friend, and she chats to her dead partner on like a Facebook Messenger kind of thing. And I think he even knows stuff that, like, he really only he would know, except it's been somehow mined from his social media. And eventually it culminates with there's like a an extra service that's going through its like alpha stages or beta stages, and they like deliver a robot replica of your partner to you who behaves exactly like a human. It's really horrible. But anyway, and then what if that virtual person starts demanding rights, or puts on virtual concerts, or starts trying to take over the nuclear launch centers of the world? It'd be a giant mess, is what I'm saying. Thank you, thegamer.com. It sort of reminds me of that time they resurrected Tupac to put on a Coachella performance. How do you pronounce that? Coachella?
I think Coachella is right.
Coachella. That was weird, but this could be a whole lot weirder. Source, United States Patent and Trademark Office. Thank you, Sean Murray from No Man's Sky developer. Hello Games, that's the one. Wonderful.
Actual Sean Murray there.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's weird, and are they suggesting that this is something that obviously people would have to consent to? They can't just like see that I've died and just swoop into my Twitter account and steal everything, can they? Like, someone needs to give permission first, surely.
Well, I would have thought so, but what if your social media profiles are all public, which they shouldn't be if you can help it, you know? But what's to stop someone just using public data? Like, probably that data, if it's just in the public sphere, can be... I mean, I guess photos can't be. I think there is sort of stuff in place to say if it's my photo on my Facebook account, even if it's public, it's not for you. But if they know how I speak and the things that I talk about, and they make a bot that just goes, how about that new Star Wars Beyond Good and Evil game, Spyro? It looks great. Then that maybe that is public domain information, and they could just do that without my permission. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like that. Not a fan of that. Any of that.
Yeah, pretty spooky.
It's weird.
Something else is weird, Ben. Your news.
My news. I want to give a quick honorable mention to the people of Reddit who are currently crashing or bankrupting some hedge funds in the States over GameStop stock. I don't know if you've seen this.
I've seen that GameStop stock has gone up massively, like twice in 2 weeks. Like, there's two separate stories a week apart on it, on Kotaku, I think. But I don't know about the trying to crash the stocks or whatever it was. What did you say?
So it's not. I don't know. You know, I'm no stock spurt.
No.
I own a couple of small stake stocks just through like a little trading app, but like nothing extravagant. People of a specific Reddit thread essentially noticed that hedge funds bought or utilized a dubious but totally legal stock acquisition method to essentially bet and keep the prices of GameStop stock low.
Okay.
And they acquired those stocks in a manner that meant that they would eventually have to repay the amount of stocks that they bought at whatever the market price is.
Right.
So, using the same tactics that hedge fund managers and companies and businesses, whatever you want to call them, corporations, I don't know what they are, have been using for decades to basically manipulate the stock market, enthusiasts by the tens of thousands, perhaps even more, from this Reddit thread have been purchasing as much GameStop stock as they can to push the price up. It's gone up from something like $4 to over $200. And essentially that means that these hedge funds are going to have to repay these stocks at potentially, nearly, several dozens of times the price.
Wow.
So if they got 1 million stocks, for example, I don't know how it works, they could potentially be looking at having to pay back more money than they could possibly have. One company's already declared bankruptcy. Elon Musk, as despicable of human being as he is, also got on board because those similar companies have also tried to use tactics to lower the stock price of Tesla. So he tweeted about it, which also pushed the GameStop price up of stock. And it's basically become this game of chicken where the people who are buying these stocks now obviously have far less to gain than the people who bought them early on. But basically, it's putting the hedge funds in a very, very difficult position, which is quite funny, and also happens to be GameStop that is the central point of this whole thing.
The issue is that because the price of the stocks is going up and up and up, people will be tempted now. If they got on board with this like initiative early on and maybe paid like, you know, $30 or something, and now it's worth $200. Temptation would be at this point, like, as with all like stock trading, like at what point do I sell? Because once this story is blown over, everyone who's owns those stocks will want to sell them, and GameStop stock might suddenly absolutely crash in value because everyone will be offloading it. So I hope GameStop do all right in the long run from this. Certainly, I would guess at the moment they're probably doing quite well, but
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how their business is doing, but stocks, bearing in mind they're largely imaginary and their value is basically just whatever very rich people decide, by what they're paying, what they'll pay for it. Essentially, it's very refreshing to see. For, you know, now a lot of bigger, far more wealthy people are getting involved as well to almost get back at hedge funds who manipulate the market this way themselves and have been doing it. That's their whole business model, is doing that. And now sort of the common folk have risen up and realized that actually, in the case of GameStop and probably some other businesses as well, the tactics they're using here are very exploitable, and we could absolutely turn the tide. If we all bought GameStop stocks, we could ruin these companies, basically. And that's what they've done. One of them's already had a bailout. Doesn't look like they're going to get another one because they're hoping that, you know, they'd turn the tide, and they haven't. Just more people are getting involved. It's really fascinating. I don't understand the intricacies of it, but those are the broad strokes. So if you want to learn more, give it a Google, because it's everywhere at the moment. But really interesting. Not even my weird news. No. My weird news is from Push Square. Get Chris Redfield's coat with this $1,800 Resident Evil Village Collector's Edition.
Oh, wow. Okay. I hope it's a real coat and not a plastic one that sits on your shelf.
Just for his little statue, yeah.
$1,800. Okay.
Come on, own up. Who doesn't want to own Chris Redfield's coat? We know you've all been waiting for the opportunity to splash the cash on the Resident Evil character's getup, and now the opportunity has finally arrived with a Resident Evil Village Collector's Edition that'll only set you back $1,800. It's a bit of a bargain, but since this version of the game is only being offered in Japan at 192,500 yen, delivery charges will see that price rise a little bit more. Ooh. Alongside the stylish garment, you also get all the other items included in the standard collector's edition. That includes a statue of the man himself, a poster featuring the in-game map, a box, art book, and steelbook. Capcom plans to flog all that stuff for $219, which means the developer reckons Chris Redfield's coat is worth in the region of $1,580.
Wow.
That's certainly a high price, as the Resident Evil 4 merchant would put it.
Imagine if it arrived and it was like the Fallout canvas bag, and it's just gone down in quality. It used to be like a really nice, I don't know, like a big sheepskin coat or something, and now it's just made of polyester.
It's made of sort of stitched together Tesco carrier bags.
Yeah.
But that's it. I've sent you a photo of it there. It's a nice coat, but it also looks like a coat that I own that was significantly cheaper than that, and that you can buy in like, you could go to Next and buy one of those. And it would be maybe 30 quid. So.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
you've
pretty
got a coat
unremarkable
like that.
as a coat. In terms of its design, I think they did a similar thing for Leon's jacket for Resi 6. There was some crazy edition you could get. Spend hundreds, if not thousands of pounds on it. I don't know.
I mean, the box is nice, and you know, the map looks kind of cool, and the art book, but geez, size M. Okay.
You could spend $220 to get that stuff, though.
You could.
And then $1,500 to get the jacket. But there we are. That's weird news. Before we move on to the next question, would you like to hear from the last couple of special guests?
Oh, I'd love to. I would absolutely love to, yes.
Okay, here we go. Here's our next special guest. We've got two more. I'm going to play them now. Here's guest one.
Hello, Peter. Hello, Ben. Ken Levine here, Ayn Rand enthusiast and genius big brain behind the BioShock series. I've been gone for a little while now, but in light of your 100th podcast episode, I thought I'd give you a little heads up on what I'm working on next. Unholy War 2.
No!
Hear me out. What if the Unholy War took place in an underwater utopia plagued by a dictator, power-crazed businessman, and sea slugs that make you shoot lightning out your fingers? It's my best idea yet, and I'm honestly getting me excited just thinking about it. Anyway, I'm off now. See you at the Game Awards in 2024.
Ken Levine.
Ken, please, I didn't realise that he'd somehow acquired the rights for Unholy War from, I think, Toys for Bob. Wow, how exciting.
What a scoop. What a scoop.
What a huge scoop.
And a totally original setting as well for the Unholy War 2.
Yeah, just a kind of it sounds, I mean, why hasn't anyone done that before, an underwater dystopia?
Man. I don't know.
Or did he say utopia? I can't remember which word he used.
He said utopia.
He said utopia. I don't know where I got dystopia from. That's a very strange thing to say.
Totally different, isn't it? It sounds great. I'm sure it went really well.
And Ken Levine, of course, excellent track record, particularly recently. You know, he can do no wrong. So I can't wait for him to take control of literally one of my favourite games of all time, which already has no audience whatsoever. And so, you know, if a really excellent version of it came out, which I'm sure it would, that would definitely boost its popularity and not harm it in any way. So
if anyone's going to turn that series around and make it popular, it's Ken Levin.
Ken Levin.
It's happening. He's working on it. So
I can't believe it.
Big news. What a treat for
Rob
episode
Rotovich
100.
will be over the moon.
Right, we've got the final guest here.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Hey up, pets. It's actual real-life Hideo Kojima here with a message of thanks for your continued love and support throughout our tumultuous development period on Death Stranding. I think we can all agree it turned out great, didn't it, eh? It were really fun. Weeing on mushrooms and that, and then walking really far. Anyway, hey, enough about me. Jeff Keighley and I wanted to congratulate you on 100 episodes of the podcast. Keep up the great work, and I'll see you soon. Doodles.
Hideo Kojima.
Hideo. God.
Hideo Kojima.
You know, some people, you know I'm from Yorkshire, Ben.
Yes.
Some people think that I sound like I'm from Japan with an accent like this.
Yeah, you do. It's a very similar accent.
They do, don't they? I don't know why I even brought up Yorkshire. Well, I guess because it sounds a bit like Hideo's Japanese accent.
Yeah, it does. Hideo there, very Japanese sounding Hideo.
Very
Kojima.
Japanese. In fact, his English has improved because he quite often has a translator, doesn't he? But you know, he's saying see the soon, and it were right good and stuff. Yeah,
A up pets.
A up pets.
Yeah, very, very sort of Japanese mannerisms and
very
Hideo Kojima. And also Jeff Keighley as well sends his love. And always good to hear from Jeff, his best friend.
His best friend, Jeff.
Best friends forever. And that's it. That concludes our special messages, which is really sad that I've got no more for you.
Star-studded podcast.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But we've still got podcasts to get through.
We have.
So let's forge ahead with question 3.
Let's do that. This is from Jonathan. It's not got an H in it, so I'm assuming it's Jonathan. Geiser or Geiser? It's EI. Who's to say? Probably Jonathan could tell us.
Probably Jonathan, yeah.
So, after the recent events with Vicarious, it says Vicarious Games, I think he means Vicarious Visions. After the recent events with Vicarious Visions and Blizzard, how will this affect the Crash Bandicoot series from now on? Greetings from La Paz, Bolivia. Oh, well, thank you, Jonathan, for writing from La Paz, Bolivia.
Hello.
So, for those who don't know, this is that Vicarious Visions have been sort of absorbed by Blizzard. I've got a little read here from gamesindustry.biz. Activision Blizzard has moved its Vicarious Visions studio from the Activision side of the business to the Blizzard side. The publisher today told gamesindustry.biz that effective today, at time of writing, it is merging Vicarious Visions into Blizzard Entertainment. Going forward, the Vicarious Visions team of about 200 people will be employees of Blizzard and fully dedicated to existing Blizzard games and initiatives. Which means the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 studio will no longer be creating games as the lead developer. So that is their most recent game, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. In terms of Crash Bandicoot, I know there was an initial wave particularly among the sort of some of the people I follow on Twitter and the circles I mix with in social media, people saying, oh no, if Vicarious had been absorbed by Blizzard and they're not working on Activision games anymore, they won't be able to do any more Crash Bandicoot. And, how's that going to affect the series? Well, need I remind you that actually Crash Bandicoot 4 was developed by Toys for Bob, who also worked on the Insane trilogy alongside Vicarious Visions. And the Crash Team Racing remake was developed by Beanox. So actually, while Vicarious Visions, I do think, like, when you think of Vicarious, probably the first game that comes to mind for me is the Crash Bandicoot, or the first franchise that comes to mind for me is Crash Bandicoot. They worked on Insane Trilogy a couple of years ago now. What is it, 3 or 4 years ago? And they've not worked on any Crash since then. So in terms of how it's going to affect the Crash series, I don't think it's going to have too much of an effect at all. Because
they can jog on then, can't they?
They can jog on. They did an excellent job, and I think it's a shame because they may well have. I think the way that Activision are handling Crash and Spyro in terms of remakes and now new original games is they're sort of juggling it all around. They seem to have been juggling everything together between Vicarious, Beanox, and Toys for Bob. And it seemed all quite interchangeable. And as I say, Toys for Bob worked on the Insane Trilogy. They did Spyro Reignited. And I think Beanox did some Reignited, maybe. It's all very much a big kind of group effort. So to lose Vicarious Visions from that pool is a shame. But as I say, in terms of lead development, they've not actually worked on a Crash game for 2 entries now. So Crash is in safe hands without them, as it has been for 2 games. So I think it's safe, but it's a loss because I think they did a very good job with the Insane Trilogy. So we'll have to see where it goes from here.
I agree. I do think it's a loss. I can't really speak any more on the future of Crash beyond what you've already said. But in terms of it clearly being a very talented studio and now sort of being relegated to support work on Blizzard games, that seems like such a missed opportunity for what is quite clearly a very talented studio, has a lot of talent there, has a lot of potential as well. And now to be working in a support role is just, there's got to be a good reason for this, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's some sort of financial business restructuring stuff or what, or if this is genuinely a massive blunder, a la EA with various studios over the years. However, I would like to think that they will be working on something of note, maybe, but part of me just assumes that now that that statement's very clear, they're merging it in and they're, fully dedicated to existing Blizzard games and initiatives. So maybe there is some scope for them to work on something on the Blizzard side of the company rather than the Activision side, but I would imagine that they're not going to be really doing anything hugely exciting anymore.
Yeah.
I would like to think that perhaps they will move creative talent to a different studio if the sort of the body of Vicarious Visions is now working in that support role, because otherwise it's just such a waste of talent. You've got a lot of people there who are really, really good. You don't want them laboring in a support role. You want those people, if that studio has to be there, say for financial reasons, then get the people that can really make interesting and good stuff out of there and in a different studio or working somewhere else. Because that's just, what a waste otherwise. What a waste. You're
right. Like a support role, I mean, I don't know the exact ins and outs of how game development works and so on, but to move someone to a support role, dedicated to existing Blizzard games and initiatives, it sounds like it's a less creative line of work there, and it's more about bug fixing and looking after stuff that's going on that's already out there, maintenance and
seasonal updates,
exactly,
and skins and that kind of
still
stuff.
Bringing out new content, but not necessarily having to do a lot of writing and art, conceptual work, I suppose. Or certainly not as much as if you're developing an entire new game. So it would be a shame if you have a bunch of people who are very good at that sort of thing in Vicarious, who are now just sort of maybe going to be occasionally coming up with new, like you say, new skins, or perhaps a new little DLC world of a certain game or something like that. Yeah, we'll have to just see what happens there and whether people get moved around. And also, I obviously talked a lot there about Crash and Spyro and that little corner of Activision, but the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was a really well done remake. It was a lot of fun, and I think there was a hope from some people that maybe they might release a 3 and 4 eventually, or that they might even do Tony Hawk's Underground, which I believe was popular at the time. I know it's not necessarily something that people remember as fondly as the Pro Skater games, but I loved Tony Hawk's Underground, and I think a lot of people did. So I would have loved to play a game like that as well eventually. And if they're no longer going to be developing stuff independently, or developing new games under Activision, then I guess that's probably not going to happen, or certainly not under Vicarious. So yeah, I guess we'll have to watch this space.
We will. But before we get any news on that, in all likelihood, it's time to move on to are you ready?
I am.
It's time to move on to a big discussion.
Big discussion.
Big discussion.
Keep not saying it.
You don't. You do. What? Big discussion time. Time for the big discussion. This big discussion comes courtesy of Ed Hoik, or Hoik. Please correct us, Ed, on how to pronounce your name. Yeah. And I will say that Bartimus1986 asked a very similar question regarding launch server issues with Hitman 3. Your conversation on the last podcast about AC Valhalla came very close to my own experience with the game. It's a great Viking simulator with a frustrating Assassin's Creed overlay on it. What's really disconcerting is the sheer amount of bugs, or sheer number of bugs, still in the game months after release. On my trip to London, I faced a game-breaking bug. A necessary cutscene refused to trigger that has a couple of unofficial workarounds. One thankfully worked. It reached the point in the game that when I get stuck, my first instinct is to see if there is a bug rather than a puzzle.
Yeah.
To finally get to my question, what can we as consumers do to fix this situation? I don't buy games on day of release because no games are ready at launch anymore, but a game that's out for months I'm assuming shouldn't have issues of this sort, especially one created by one of the largest developers in the world. I want to play the games, but I also want any frustrations. I also don't want any frustrations due to my ability or lack thereof, not the code. So, it seems Ed's run into a lot of problems with Assassin's Creed, and what he's essentially saying there is that he's done everything right. He's not pre-ordered.
Yeah.
He's waited a few months before he got the game, and there's still loads of issues with it. Loads of issues with it. Where's he going wrong? What's he doing wrong there? Nothing.
It's
Ed's
funny
doing nothing wrong.
No, because I saw a webcomic this morning on Reddit. It was probably just on r/gaming or something. I was just scrolling through popular threads, and it wasn't like that funny. It was just like one character saying, "Oh, why has this happened with Cyberpunk?" And someone next to them saying, "Just stop pre-ordering games." And then in the next panel, they were saying, "Oh, why is this game so broken?" And they were saying, "Just stop pre-ordering games." And that was the joke. And that's the initial reaction that you have to things like this, or from the other end, I guess. So before games come out, sometimes there'll be this big, there'll be loads of people saying, "Oh, I've pre-ordered, I'm so excited." And people will be saying, "Why have you pre-ordered? It might be broken when it comes out." But to now be at the other end of that, and games still being broken to certain levels, I mean, it's not unplayable, but having some major bugs in them, weeks after release, months after release, in the case of some games, you can no longer say like, "Oh, well, it's to do with pre-ordering," because it's not as such. It's by now these things should have been addressed. Hopefully, I would have liked to think. So yeah. It's difficult. You're right that the Ed has done the right thing. He didn't pre-order. He thought, "I'll wait till they fix the inevitable problems," and they haven't. And what are we supposed to do? I guess ultimately there still is the issue of, by pre-ordering these games, a developer or publisher benefits financially from getting money ahead of time, and the hype that you get from that, and the just the high number of sales, the sheer money that these games produce, and I guess that in turn encourages them to crap out these games as fast as possible. So you could still argue that actually not pre-ordering games will, in the long run, prevent games being released in a broken state to the point that they're still not fixed after 2 months because there are that many problems. So it's still, in some ways, like not pre-ordering will still help situations like this, but that's more of a long game. It's like a long-term effect. But yeah, really, it's an issue of games making a lot of money, and the temptation from publishers to release them as soon as they're vaguely releasable, as we saw with Cyberpunk. I mean, that even probably wasn't necessarily releasable on console, but they did it because they just thought, we don't want to spend any more money on development. We need to get it out there. That's a big problem there with the industry at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is that this is meant to be the solution, isn't it? Because, quite frankly, as we've talked about before, we are in a small bubble at the center of, the games community, in terms of we actually are plugged into what's going on and know what's happening. And I know there's, you just look on YouTube, you look at how many channels there are, you look at how many websites there are covering games, but comparatively, the people who visit/run those sites and watch those videos and make those videos, compared to the vast majority of people who actually consume games in any form.
Yeah.
Most people are uninformed. They don't know about this kind of stuff. They don't know not to pre-order. So while you could save yourself some heartache by not pre-ordering, there's no real way that we could ever sort of force the hand of enough people to stop pre-ordering that it would make a big difference. So to get back to Ed's question, he did everything right. He didn't pre-order, so he didn't have to face the bugs at launch.
Yeah.
And then when he did get around to playing it, he still had issues. So what do you do? What does Ed do in that situation? What does any of us do? And the answer is, I don't know.
No.
Because it's not meant to be. It shouldn't be an issue at launch anyway. And if there's any way we can put pressure on companies, say by taking a little chunk out of their pre-order numbers by not pre-ordering the games, in order that they actually make sure their games are as solid as possible at launch, then that will ultimately only benefit people down the line. I didn't play Miles Morales at launch. I only played it this month, and it was patched to support a 4K ray tracing mode, which, was worth waiting for. It was great to play the game in that fashion. With Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I will say that I've had very limited bugs and glitches, and I've clearly been quite fortunate in that. I had a number of occasions where there was no lip sync with the characters. That's happened a lot.
Right.
Where they just keep their mouths closed when they're meant to be talking. Last night, my entire PS5 crashed when playing the game, but that's the only time that's happened so far. But in terms of, it's just sort of an endemic issue with the games industry. It's just getting seemingly worse and worse, and obviously the crux of it being Cyberpunk most recently. And games are more intricate, and they're getting more expensive to make, and there's a pandemic on, and they do have internal deadlines that need to be hit because studios can run out of money, and they are funded by publishers who expect games out at a certain time, and not every studio can afford to be a first-party studio that can have the amount of time that Naughty Dog has, that can have the amount of time that, I can't remember their name, whoever's working on Halo Infinite. Who is that? It's not the Initiative, is it? Is it 434?
434. Are they still doing Halo games? I'm not up to date with who developed.
Whoever developed Halo 4, whoever took over from Bungie asked
343.
343. Oh my god, 343. That's the one.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I also thought it was 434 until we gave it a bit more thinking time. So yeah.
Error 404.
Yeah.
Not everyone can have the amount of time that those studios can have, because they're part of a publisher that can just fund them and keep them going as long as the publisher thinks it's worth doing. A lot of companies are under extreme pressure to get these games turned around. I don't think anyone nobody who worked on and released Cyberpunk in that state was happy with how it went out. That's got to be true. And there's clearly it's an issue at the corporate level, at the managerial level, at the business level that needs to be addressed. And I don't know what more that we as consumers can do other than either not buying a product because it's not up to our standards and we won't give it our time or money, or refusing to pre-order it and getting it later on. I don't know what else we can do. And I'm not saying that it's the responsibility of the people working at the studios to the someone who's doing sort of environmental art on the new Mass Effect game, for example. It's not their responsibility to make sure the game is ready when it goes out. They just have to do their part. They just do their bit. The buck stops with the people in management, and I don't know how to get through to them. I don't know if it has to come to studios and staff unionizing to make sure that they get the time they need to work on these games, because it's become increasingly apparent that crunch doesn't work. And it doesn't make a good game. Sometimes, as we've talked about before, it has allowed people to make unbelievable video games like The Last of Us Part 2, like Red Dead Redemption 2. But equally, I think a lot of people would have been happy for those games to take longer. Crunch doesn't mean a game is going to be polished and ready to go. And there's a whole combination of factors that would need to sort of coalesce to stop games being so buggy at launch. But when games are still buggy several months after launch, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. It just shouldn't be like that. It's not acceptable.
And it's difficult. Such a shame. I find it difficult to say things like, "Oh, don't pre-order," or maybe boycott a game if you really don't like the way the studio behaves for whatever reason, whether it's the way they treat their staff or things they put into their games or whatever it is. I find it difficult to say that sometimes because we feel sort of obliged to cover most of the big games, certainly the ones that come out on PlayStation platforms, and the occasional PC and Xbox One as well. James will help us out with and stuff like that. So we will get occasionally we'll get an early copy of something, or we'll get it at launch. Either sometimes through a publisher or PR company. Sometimes we'll have to buy it ourselves on the company. So we can be sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, look, this game came out and it's broken," or "Oh look, they've put a live service thing in there when they really shouldn't have done, and it's really problematic. If you don't like this, you shouldn't support it. We don't really like this. We wish they'd not done it." And yet there we are, having to buy one sometimes on the company account. So that we can do the coverage and talk about it sincerely, rather than say, "Oh, well, we've seen reviews about this on IGN and we think it sounds bad, so we're not going to, So it's a bit, and I think people, to some ways, I could understand people saying to us, "Well, you clearly bought it, you supported it, you put it out on your channel." But then on the other hand, I think, well, it's kind of our job to do that. So it feels a bit, I won't go as far as to say hypocritical, but it can be tricky to try and preach that as a solution to these sorts of issues when we're always playing this stuff in week one, or quite often anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think there's an argument to be made for us using the platform we have to let people know what's going on, and hopefully either persuade people to buy really good games that they might not have otherwise considered, or put people off buying games that aren't so good and maybe don't deserve your money.
Yeah,
exactly. So we have a far smaller responsibility than, say, big websites like IGN.
Yeah,
but we do have a responsibility to cover these games as honestly as we can, to let you know our thoughts, to not influence your purchasing decisions necessarily, but just to advise them. And yeah, the thing is with not pre-ordering is that it doesn't solve it. It's not the solution. It might, in the long term, if enough people do it, change things. But I think the big changes maybe got to come from within the studios and within the publishers themselves. And you're already seeing that. I mean, we saw that with CD Projekt. They promised. This is why this whole situation is so weird and messed up and stings so hard for a lot of people, is that they were meant to be the good guys. They promised no crunch. They put the thank you letters in The Witcher 3. They were meant to be the good developer, the good publisher, and then they weren't. They were just the worst, like so much worse than we could have possibly imagined. And that's permanently stained their reputation. They may be able to claw back some goodwill, but more companies like that need to come forwards. You know, they need to make bold statements and stick by them and say, we're not going to do this. Who was it that made Hades? Let me just check.
Oh, yeah.
Because their studio is notoriously anti-crunch. Supergiant Games. And they take a big stance about that. I think they're also, I may be wrong now, but I think they're also a satellite studio in that everybody works from home. They don't have a central office.
Right.
And so everybody can take the time they need to work on the game. There's no crunch. And what do you know? If you get enough talented people together and you have a decent enough idea, you can make a really good game. And it doesn't matter how hard you crunch and how, you know, you don't have to worry about it being buggy because it's not going to be buggy if you make it properly.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if there is a solution. I don't think it's simple. I think there needs to be big changes internally at developers and publishers to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. There's very little that you or I can do to change that stuff, apart from, as I said earlier, avoid personal heartbreak by not getting a game at launch because it might be buggy. You know, that's only something that can help us. That doesn't necessarily change the way the industry works.
You're right, yeah.
So those big changes need to come from the top. I don't know what's going to influence that. I don't know what's going to change that. But who knows? This may have kicked up enough of a stink with Cyberpunk that we may see some changes being made. I don't know.
Because you're right. Even with saying to if people avoid pre-ordering, not just to dodge the personal heartbreak of having a buggy game at launch, but as you say, you know, potentially it could, in the long term, it could have an impact on you know, the publisher might think, oh look, people aren't pre-ordering anymore because they're really sick of these games coming out buggy at launch. However, to go back to a point that you mentioned at sort of the top of your answer, because there are all these other people who aren't on the button and or you know, they don't have necessarily the time to just stay up to date all the time on gaming and understand these issues more deeply. I wonder whether there will ever be enough people who are informed enough to not pre-order for this reason in order for it to have any kind of long-term effect. I kind of think there are always going to be that many other people who don't follow stuff like this podcast or read, you know, Kotaku and IGN and websites like that or other YouTube channels, for it to have any kind of effect. If everyone listening to a podcast like this one, having this discussion, thought, yeah, you know what, we're all going to do it. We're all going to like stop pre-ordering stuff. Even then, I would wonder, like, how many numbers, what big number do you have to hit in order for it to really make a publisher look at their figures and think, oh, let's not do this anymore? Because if all the other people who aren't watching and reading video game related content continue to pre-order because that's just what they know, and they don't necessarily understand the effect that it might have to not pre-order, is it just a drop in the ocean? I don't know. Who's to say?
Yeah. It's going to take, sadly, I think, several Cyberpunk or Battlefront 2 scale, you know, legal government involvement action for things to change dramatically.
Could be right.
For these games to come out properly. And not all games do come out broken messes, but it seems to be increasingly happening. I know, let me just pull up my running order again quickly. I know Bartimus brought up Hitman 3 servers. Obviously, Hitman 3 reviewed very well. I don't think that game is buggy or broken, but there's been a lot of frustrations with the server stability at launch. And you know, Bartimus is right. If you're looking forward to this game and you buy it at launch, you expect the game to be ready. You don't expect the servers to be absolutely screwed over as they have been. You know, you should expect and should demand better than that. And I'm sure IO Interactive are probably really embarrassed, and they weren't expecting that, and maybe they just weren't prepared for the influx of players. But they knew they were launching this game, And it's still, it's not good enough. It needs to be better than that. These games they can't all launch flawlessly, and that's understandable. But there is a level of quality that you deserve and that you should be able to expect with these games.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's mad to say.
Because there's a bit of a... I mean, it's kind of a back in my day mentality, and it feels a bit nostalgic and kind of silly. But if you think back to essentially games that were released before the days of online play and downloadable patches, those games had to be perfect, and they usually were, or they didn't have like major the kinds of bugs that you see today on release. On the likes of the PS1, PS2, that's and before that kind of era. And of course, as you said again, games are far more complex now. There's way more moving parts and finer details and all sorts of permutations of like the way that AI can interact with a world, or so many polygons to deal with and all that kind of stuff. So I understand that it's not just developers / publishers are getting lazier or lowering their standards, or it's not just that at all. Games are getting harder to produce and release flawlessly, but there is still that element, especially for those people who have been gaming for long enough that they remember several generations ago when games would be relatively flawless on release. As you say, there is now there's an expectation, certainly from those people, that I deserve a product that works at launch. So you have to wonder how long people will be able to feel that way before they really start to say, why is this happening now? It didn't used to be like this. How long can you hide behind the excuse that games are more complex, but just wait till it's mostly working before you release it? That would be great. But then it's almost a cyclic circular argument with internal deadlines and all the kinds of things we've already talked about. But it's
a complicated issue.
Yeah.
And there's no easy solution. It's all about money and making as much money as fast as possible and making your money back. And sometimes the money outweighs the importance of getting the video game right. In fact, on most times, the money is more important than getting the video games right. And hopefully that will shift. I don't know what it's going to take. Hopefully it's not another disaster like Cyberpunk, but we will just have to wait and see, won't we? Just in the meantime, do what's best for you. It sucks that you're still having issues with Assassin's Creed months after launch. You would have thought at the very least that it would be far more stable for you now. As I said, it's largely fine for me. But I'm sorry to hear you're having issues.
Yeah.
But certainly in terms of games launching in a poor state, just maybe avoid getting them if you can until you hear that they're a bit more stable. Because beyond that, what can you do?
Not much.
Can you do? Not much. Look at us, eh?
Hey, look at us.
Look at us. Well, with that big discussion, we have reached the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. For the first time in ages, we're on camera, or listening. Very much appreciated. Peter's going to tell you how and where you can find us.
Well, if you're listening, you can watch on YouTube at youtube.com/Team TripleJump. You can watch this very podcast and also all of our other videos that we put out. And we stream on YouTube and Twitch. And Twitch is twitch.tv/Team TripleJump. When we're streaming on YouTube and Twitch, we're modded by Lord Brotovich, Madsterdactyl, and Trowling Badger. And remember, over on Twitch, you can actually get essentially a free Twitch subscription if you're on Amazon Prime already. It's no extra cost. It's just one of the benefits of Amazon Prime. So you can subscribe to us on Twitch for sort of no extra cost on top of your Prime service. Our social medias are twitter.com and facebook.com/Team TripleJump. Luke Eldon looks after Facebook and does a fantastic job. Patreon.com/Team TripleJump is where you can go to get lots of different rewards, including asking questions on this podcast, early worst games ever, and lots of other things too. We've got a Discord. You can get to that easily at bit.ly/Team TripleJump. That's modded by Jack and Joe, who also do a cracking job. The podcast is available in audio form if you're watching on YouTube right now at play.acast.com/s/TripleJump. The website is triplej.mp, that's ju.mp, and if you go to triplej.mp/shop, that's where you can get to our store.
Hello everyone, it's Future Ben here with a shop update. That link Peter provided is definitely still live. However, we have got huge, very exciting developments happening with merchandise very soon. So if you go to triplejumpshop.com, that's a dedicated shop website, and enter your email address, you'll be the first person to find out when the new merchandise drops. It's all very exciting, it looks amazing. I think it's only available for a limited time, so make sure you go there, sign up, and avoid missing out. Oh, and for updates, you can also follow the shop on Twitter at TripleJumpShop. That's at TripleJumpShop. No team in there, at TripleJumpShop on Twitter. Thanks so much.
And triplej.mp/VODs will take you straight to our YouTube VODs channel, where all of our VODs get uploaded, and as well as weekly highlights of our live streams, which are edited together by Pat, who also does a great job.
Certainly does. You can follow Peter on Instagram and Twitter at @PeterAustin, and myself just on Twitter at @confused_dude. We do lists every Tuesday and Thursday, streams every Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Thursday being the joint streams, Blaze It, on YouTube, and Monday and Friday being the solo streams on Twitch. Worst Games Ever is fortnightly, Friday for patrons of a certain tier, Sunday for everyone else. It's not a Worst Games Ever week this week. However, we have other stuff, which is quite exciting. Podcast is every Saturday, and we do shows once every other week, that sort of thing. Please leave a review on iTunes or your platform of choice. It helps something to do with Al Gore's rhythms. It does help. Engagement helps. Leave a comment, do something.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Now, this week on the channel, available right now, we have a new episode of What It Means to Me with Dr. Elisa Melendez, who you may have seen around on the internet. She does all sorts of stuff. But she's perhaps prominently known for her recent role as Tyrene Calypso in Borderlands 3. And she's come along to tell us all about her experience with Borderlands 3 and why that game is so important to her. It's a great video, really interesting perspective from someone who's actually worked on the game they're talking about to an extent. So give it a watch. It's really interesting stuff. Additionally, Peter, next week, Triple Jump turns 2 years old.
Whoa! Oh, it's quite nice to have the 100th episode this week, and then next week we're celebrating the birthday. So
it is nice. It is very nice. So next Thursday we will be streaming a Worst Games Ever. It'll be one of our very elusive, special Worst Games Ever streams. We'll be playing one of the worst reviewed games of 2020. So do tune in 3 until 5 p.m. on Thursday on YouTube. We'll be tweeting out the link and stuff later in the week. So do come along if you can. The VOD will be going up probably on the main channel, because that's what we tend to do with the Worst Games Ever streams. So it won't be on the VODs channel. It should be on the main channel. So you'll be able to watch it back then.
Does that mean I don't have to edit one that week? No.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we did put a normal one out as well.
Depends what the patrons think of that, the people who paid for an episode.
No, definitely. We will, as always, be doing a proper episode of Worst Games Ever as well.
Episode.
Yeah, I'm only joking.
Only joking. Finally, it's time to thank our sponsor this week, which of course didn't exist. So I would like to thank David Quage, Will Poulter, Hideo Kojima, Ken Levine, The God of War, and oh no, there's one there that didn't end up coming through that I wrote in. I nearly said it.
That you wrote.
I wrote in to say thank you to.
Right.
But they didn't deliver in the end, which is really sad. There wasn't enough time.
Was it? Did you reach out to Michel Ancel for me just to?
No, I'm afraid not.
I mean,
it was another one of your favourites, though.
He runs a wildlife reserve now, so he probably doesn't have a lot of signal out there. So.
Oh, maybe not. I think you could probably guess which person I reached out to, but didn't hear back from. It's one of your unironically favourite video game characters that we've spoken about on this podcast. He was one of your favourite games of 2019.
Which one though? One of my unironically favourite video game characters of all time.
No,
as well as just 2019.
I'm absolutely taking the mick. It's someone who you actually didn't really enjoy that much at all.
Oh, I mean, that doesn't really narrow it down for me.
He had a lightsaber.
Oh, of course. Old Cal Kestis.
Old Cal Kestis. I reached out. It's weird because we talk so much smack about him. They didn't get back to me.
Cal? Jeez, probably too busy making the sequel, which I think is all but confirmed.
Just having a really punchable face.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Adjusting his terrible, annoying hair. So, yeah, I wrote into... That's why I nearly continued and said, and Cal Kestis, because I reached out to him. I thought, he's a shoo-in. We're bound to hear back from Cal Kestis.
He loves Triple Jump podcast.
He does. He listens every week. So you missed out on Cal Kestis. I'm sorry to reveal that right at the end. But thank you to everyone else, all of our amazing A-list celebrity video game friends who recorded messages for us on our 100th episode. And also a big thank you to you, all of you, whether you've just listened or watched the videos or supported us on Patreon and submitted questions, everything. We really, really appreciate all of your support. It's a big milestone for us.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Thank you very much to everyone who's listened all this time. I wonder how many people have listened to all 100 episodes.
Oh, God, some crazy people, probably. Yeah. Really insane people. But we will continue, and next week it will be episode 101.
The celebrations continue next week as well in terms of channel birthday as well, as you've said. So keep your party hats on, everybody.
Yep.
Don't take them
Keep
off.
them on.
Don't care how stinky they get over the next 7 days. Keep them on.
Shower in them, sleep in them.
Yeah.
Who cares? Anyway, we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching and listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.